I'll call the July 10th Stormwater Management Commission meeting to order. And we've got two cases on the agenda, so I hope that we'll be out of here pretty soon. So with that, our first item of business, unless Logan, we got anything to kick off beforehand?
No,
Okay.
we don't.
And I want to welcome Logan back into the hot seat. It's nice having Miss Hayes here for a couple times. But first order of business is to review and discuss, amend, or approve our meeting minutes and decision letters from our last meeting. So I'll let the commissioners do that. We have received them beforehand, and it's customary we review it in public forum. And I'll entertain a motion when anyone's ready.
Is everybody else? I would move to approve the minutes and decision letters as presented.
Great. Do we have a second? Seconded. Any discussion? Anything good? Good. Okay. All right. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Oh, I got one abstain. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Motion carries. All right. With that, the first case on the agenda is Pennington Bend. I'd like the applicant to come to the desk here and desk or podium. Which one are we on today? Does it matter?
Probably the one on the left. I don't know if you can. There's a mic right there. Yeah, you can see Mark.
Yeah. And I'll let Logan introduce the case.
Opening statement to the applicant. If you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Stormwater Management Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the Commission's decision. You're advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied. Case number 1 on the agenda, case 2025-00015, The Bend, final variance. 2400 and 0 Pennington Bend Road. APN 062-0000-3500 and 062-0000-3600. Inspector is MPDES, Council District 15, Jeff Gregg. Applicant's request, wetland buffer disturbances, filling a portion of wetland to widen a farm road needed for emergency access drive and for utilities installation. Appellant is Gleaves Farms Ltd. LP, represented by Mark Spalding, Gresham Smith Partners. Comments, Stormwater staff. Appellant is now widening existing road and have agreed to use the 3-sided box culvert for crossing. Codes, no comment provided. Planning, location of emergency access drive matches approved preliminary SP. Greenways is not requesting a greenway or greenway easement.
Great. I'll give the applicant a quick rundown of how this will happen. I'll give you 10 minutes to present your case. I'll give you a 2-minute warning. I'll let you introduce yourself before starting the clock. Then we'll close the applicant's hearing and open it up for any public comment. If there's people here to speak in favor or against, I'll ask them to come to the podium and give them 2 minutes to discuss, and then we'll close public hearing and open it up for the commission for deliberation and may have some questions back and forth to you. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you. And sorry, if you don't mind, to press the push button on the mic to make sure the green light's on.
Okay. Is that better?
Perfect.
Okay. Mark Spalding with Gresham Smith. I'm the PM and the EOR on this project, and I know that it's a larger project. It's a couple hundred acres, but we're only really concentrating on the entrance drive or the emergency access drive out to Pennington Bend, which is that middle box that you see on that drawing right there. The driveway itself right now is about 10 feet wide. We've gotten with the fire marshal Typically, he requires a 20-foot drive for access, for emergency access. He's agreed to reduce that to 13 feet at a minimum. So we've reduced that section to 13 feet. Right now we're impacting 0.04 acres of the wetland. It actually comes up to both sides of that drive. So we've minimized it. We've minimized it based on the width that the fire marshal will accept. We've got to have that secondary access just due to the size of the development. Really, that's the area that we're talking about, the utilities as well as the drive. So really, it's pretty simple request. But I'm here for any questions that you might have. We've minimized it to the extent possible.
All right. Thank you. I know you all came before us as a preliminary.
Correct.
So I appreciate that
Yes.
approach. Okay, with that, I'll close the applicant's hearing and open it up for public comment. Is there anybody here to speak in favor or against? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none. Logan, did we receive any letters or?
Yeah, there was a list of names and support that's in the for meeting folder. If Rebecca wants to pull that up, it just says everybody's in support pretty much in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had them involved, the whole community involved since the preliminary on this project. So
Okay.
they're all in favor of this.
In the for meeting. The band in support at the bottom. Go back one.
It's good to see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all we received.
All right.
It was just them.
All right. With that, I'll close public hearing and open up discussion amongst the commissioners.
I was just going to ask if you could walk us through the mitigation plan that was provided,
The landscape mitigation?
landscaping.
Yeah, sure. So as you see there, with the green trees are the ones that we're saving on that plan. The dark black trees are the ones that are proposed. And we were talking before the meeting, there are some ash trees that are proposed that we're probably going to change those tree types, but the caliper inches will remain. And I believe it was requested, that number 50 was requested in the preliminary meeting that we had.
Are there any comments from staff that we need to consider in this? Becca, anything you're in? Okay. All right.
And that landscape you just went over is, it's not meeting any other requirement of the plans or of the
That will
SP
be
process?
that'll be counted in the overall tree density for the site.
So it's not above and beyond the required tree density right now?
We are above the density, but I'm not sure what that number is. It's
Okay.
not. This was not intended to be completely above and beyond.
because I think for mitigation, we'd like to see how it's not really meeting another requirement per se, as it's really something that's addressing what the impact is.
Strictly the buffer.
Well, the impact of the wetland, of how we're mitigating that specific impact that would be separate from any requirement of TDU or any other type of agreement that would be a perimeter buffer or that sort of thing. So just want to make sure that.
We can agree to do that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then can you go through, I noticed on the previous plan, the impact of the wetland for the construction part of it. I think that's what that hatch zone is there. Can you just maybe go through how that will be repaired post-construction?
Yeah, we've got an environmental consultant. I apologize. We've got an environmental consultant on board that will help us restore that to the wetland status.
Okay. And I know that we talked about in the preliminary, just that fire access and keeping it or working to keep it to the minimum required given what it is. So I do appreciate that coming back and keeping that reduced just to keep the impact reduced. I know sometimes the fire can get, the access can kind of just be what it is and it gets to be that 20-foot width or more. So appreciate that coming back and reducing that impact.
So one thing we often ask about is alternatives, and you've provided kind of an alternatives analysis. Can you speak to the alternatives that were considered, that just so it's on like record, kind of walk through what the different options were?
Well, the option here, the the wetland, because it's linear, there was really no way to get out without a circuitous route around the entire site, which would make the emergency access longer. And since the drive was already there and it was a straight access, the fire marshal really wanted that in that location. We talked about, potentially, being able to do this with only one entrance off Music Valley Drive, and that was not acceptable to the fire marshal either, just due to there being about 2,000 feet between the access point on Music Valley and the access point onto Pennington Bend, the actual depth of the property.
So if I was working on a motion, Commissioner Oliver, are there any suggestions that you would like to see in a motion if we were going to have a motion to approve additional requirements on the mitigation plan associated with the trees?
Yeah, I think we just want to make sure that the mitigation, the proposed trees that you have in there are above and beyond the required TDU that would be required, and that those are documented. I think the other thing that we talked about last time was just understanding and ensuring that those, and this may be a question for staff, of how those are monitored to ensure that they do, because I don't know if they're going to be irrigated, I guess, given where they are. If you can maybe speak to that plan in the design, and if they're not, what the process is to, I guess, ensuring that they do survive, especially those initial couple of years where they're getting established, to make sure that they are providing the long-term impact.
Yeah, I know that there'll be a warranty period for the landscape installation, and 1 year past that. Mm-hmm. So that's a typical scenario. Anything beyond that, I'd be open to hearing what you guys, would suggest, whether it's a maintenance period, whether it's a bond, whether it's, whatever you see fit, to make sure that at the end of whatever period that is, that they're still alive and doing well, thriving.
Yes, I would just add that in various cases where survivability of landscaping is a part of that does go onto the grading permit. Sometimes it extends beyond when we close the grading permit out. If that's the case, then it rolls over to our stormwater control measure inspectors, who will be following up on that.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, but I think the condition would be to just note that in the long-term maintenance plan. No bond. I mean, we don't really have the infrastructure to monitor bonds and things like that.
And I just wanted to circle back. We often have a discussion about hardship, and from what I see, the emergency access and the requirements of the fire marshal for more direct access and use of the road seems to be the hardship here, as opposed to a circuitous route for the emergency access. So I did want to make a note on what the hardship condition is that we're addressing.
And to add to that, I would say in light of the way that the property is laid out and where that wetland area is and only having the one entrance, I think looking at the hardship and the way that the real property is, I think that goes into play with it.
Working towards a motion.
Working on it. I would move to approve the request with the following adjustments. As it relates to the mitigation plan and the proposal that we have before us on L300, that there be mitigation above and beyond the required tree density requirements. I would like the applicant to work with staff for replacement of the ash trees, which appears to already be in discussion. And as it relates to the long-term maintenance plan, there was a suggestion. Does somebody want to
Address survivability of the trees
address survivability of the trees
at the discretion of staff.
at the discretion of staff? Anything else, guys? That is it.
I should note that the ash trees are shown as the existing trees. They aren't part of the planting plan. So I just wanted to make sure they weren't counting those towards anything because they're not going to survive. So I don't know if it needs to be a condition in the variance.
If my motion was not clear, as we discussed the ash, work with staff to consider removal and replacement of those trees, but still going above and beyond what the tree density requirements would be.
Okay. All right. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay. I'll-
Just one note to add for the ash. So that would really be covered in the TDU if they're meeting the TDU requirements for the property and they're going to replace them, and that would be above and beyond. That should resolve any of the concern.
versus removing them.
Versus putting any other condition on it. I think if they're meeting the TDU with whatever they work out with staff
Yeah.
and then providing above and beyond, that should resolve itself.
All right.
Is that a recommendation to amend my motion?
No, it's really just a clarification on, I think, how
Clarification.
that really gets, addressed.
All right. All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next case up to bat is Metro Parks Greenways. You would come to the desk here and I'll let Logan introduce the case.
Case number 2 on the agenda is case 2025-00016, 440 Greenway, from Sevier Park to Battlefield Park. Inspector is NPDES, Council District 25, Jeff Prepteet. Applicant's variance request for 122.9 cubic yards of uncompensated fill in the floodplain, disturbance of the buffer area, retaining wall, and pedestrian bridge in the buffer. Appellant is Metro Parks and Greenways, represented by Harrison Turner, Kimley Horn. Comments, Stormwater staff. If approved, staff requests a no-rise analysis as a condition of approval. Codes, no comment provided. Planning, no comment provided. Greenways recommends approval.
Okay. Give you a quick rundown of how this will happen. You'll have 10 minutes to present, and then I'll close the presentation, open it up for public, and then we'll deliberate and turn it back to you if we have questions. So with that, I'll let you introduce yourself, and I'll start the 10-minute clock. If you don't mind to press the button also on the mic.
Oh, perfect. Hello, I'm Harrison Turner with Kimley Horn. We are presenting the 440 Greenway extension, which is extending the Greenway connects Sevier Park all the way down to Gale Lane Park and then runs along the 440 interstate. It does cross the interstate at Craig Lane, going from the north side of the interstate to the south side of the interstate, and then runs along all the way connecting into Battlefield Park. We are requesting uncompensated fill to be able to put in a pedestrian bridge to have minor changes to the floodway of West Browns Creek. That pedestrian bridge elevation was set by a no-rise study, which has been submitted and reviewed by Metropolitan. And then we are requesting retaining walls and stream buffers along 440. The grade between 440 and the existing roadway is pretty steep, so we're having to put in retaining walls to be able to get an ADA compliant greenway installed in that area. And unfortunately, over the last several years since 440 has been constructed, the drainage swells along 440 have grown up and are now classified as streams. Therefore, they have their own buffers. So since we are putting the greenway along 440 along these drainage swells, we are going to have retaining walls inside the buffers. So we're requesting a variance for that as well.
Okay. All right, to conclude your presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that'll close presentation. Anybody here to speak in favor or against? Sure. Okay, yep, come on up to the mic if you don't mind and introduce yourself, address, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, this is Joseph Polt. I live at 2709 Craig Avenue. I wouldn't say I'm in favor or against. We just, I live in a small homeowners association on Craig. There's 6 homes there, and we just have not received a whole lot of explanation or information about the area where that crossing is. So I mostly came here hoping to find someone involved with the project to get a contact so that we can work with the team. We're generally in favor of the Greenway as a concept. We just really want to work with the team on some of the finer details of the execution. Retaining wall sounds like a good idea, but we'd like to, in a drawing, it's a little hard for a layperson to really know exactly what everything is, as well as not as much related to the stormwater, but the crossing there. We have some questions about that. So not really in favor or against, just really would like to look for a contact, and maybe I found one. Thanks.
Perfect. I appreciate you being here today, and I encourage you to talk after the meeting to get your questions answered. But,
Thank you.
Yep, thanks. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Hi there. I am Tyler Middleton. I live at 947 Gale, and I really echo the last sentiment of my neighbor, I guess. I just don't think I have a lot of information. I can't quite tell. Is this particular hearing about, I live on the left side of this drawing. Is it only about sort of here on the right that we're talking about the retaining walls? I feel like I need more information. I'm not in support or against either. I just don't understand, and I want to make sure I have all the information.
Sure. And so if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to help you.
Where is the retaining wall that we're discussing? Is it the entire yellow line, or is it in a particular area?
Yeah. Ms. Stone, would you mind showing the plan so we can clear that up here on the screen, and then there'd be an opportunity to discuss it afterwards.
Is only the wall in the buffer?
Area.
I guess we'll have questions in a second.
Yeah, and maybe highlight on the aerial the extent of what we're looking at on the plans and an overall, just to connect the two, because it's a little, it's not very clear at the moment. Is it in fact the yellow line, I guess? Is that the extent of the project?
The yellow line, I think, is basically drawn in by our GIS tech to demonstrate where the project's going. It's not going through the middle of 440. And then it will connect down here. There are different areas that have retaining walls and some that don't. If you want to show on this diagram where those are, that might be the easiest way to do it.
Yes, so along Gale Lane, we have a retaining wall that runs along the 440 side of the trail. So it'll be along the TDOT right of way. And that's going to bench in the hill so that we can create a flat ADA spot for the trail to run. So it's going to be on the opposite side of the trail from Gale Lane, for the majority of the greenway, from Leland Lane all the way to Craig.
So it's between Gale and where 440 is now.
Correct. So the greenway runs along Leland, and then it crosses over behind all of the houses between 440 and Gale Lane. So it's going to be along the 440 right away.
What will that do to sort of the water flow or the noise or what will it look and feel like different than it does now? Because right now it's just a very steep grade, like you said.
Yes, so we're maintaining everything that's inside the TDOT fence. So there is a fence for 440 that has a lot of trees and vegetation. So that should help with the sound buffer and everything from 440. We're working exclusively on the other side of that fence. You can see kind of basically right between the yellow and the pink lines. That's where the greenway is going to go. And then we're going to have plantings and things as well to make sure it's a good community feature. We're working obviously with the Parks Department to make sure that we're not having negative impacts to the neighbors. I know we've had some community events to make sure that that is included as well. Happy to talk with you after that.
Okay,
After
thanks.
this.
I think that addresses everything I wanted to know. Appreciate it.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. Thank you for appearing today. All right. Anybody else? Yes, please. If you don't mind to press the button on the mic if it's not already green.
It's live.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name's Alyssa Wright. I'm at 2812 McNary Lane. So in one of the houses in the photos there, have been following this project for over 2 years, and I'm in support. Just want to kind of give the perspective of having kids in the neighborhood and really wanting this Greenway project to move forward. Another kind of new development is we have a rising kindergartner, and if you don't know, that pocket of Battlemont is in the 12 South zone in a Walker zone school. So it's really important for us to have that safe greenway to be able to access Sevier Park and 12 South safely. So that's my perspective. Thank you.
Great. Appreciate you coming here to share that. I know Parks is probably pleased to hear that as well. So glad that this is a good project for the neighborhood. All right, with that, anybody else? Okay. Logan, did we receive any other letters or?
No, the only emails we received were just trying to figure out exactly the extents of the greenway, but nothing in support or in favor or against.
All right, well, that'll close public hearing and open it up to discussion. I would like to clarify the extents a bit more. Rebecca, if there's an overall plan that we can look at, that there's not, okay. Yeah.
I think this is the best visual.
Okay. All right. Which part of the, I'm assuming it's the far right side that's your most filled, that's in the buffer, or is it along?
Correct.
Yeah,
The fill is to be able to put in that pedestrian bridge. It's going to be a Permatrack kind of prefab bridge that we're going to install. And it's really to get the ramps up to the edges of the bridge, because we had to make the bridge high enough to be able to satisfy our no-rise. So we had to build up the ramps to get up to the edge of the bridge, and that's where the fill is. There's a document right there with the cut fill sections. Mm-hmm. We're looking at about 123 cubic yards of uncompensated fill. That is mitigated by our no-rise report. So we did set the bridge to be able to make sure we did not cause a rise in Browns Creek.
And this is uncompensated fill in the buffer of 440 drainage ditch that's now being mapped as a stream, or is it
This is uncompensated fill in Browns Creek.
in Browns Creek?
Browns Creek.
Okay.
The retaining walls that run along the project, that is in the buffer of the drainage swells for 440. So there's two different issues.
And the drainage swales are considered what? Can you?
So based on a hydrological determination by an environmental scientist and then concurred by TDEC, those are now considered streams rather than just a wet weather conveyance. So because of that, and per Metro code, we have to put a stream buffer on them. Some of them are even concrete lined. It's just the soils around them, because it's been, I don't know, 40, 50 years since 440 got built, has become hydrologic, and they've started growing wet weather plants and things that would classify it as a stream.
Are you requesting variances from signage every 100 feet? Is that required on a greenway project along the buffer
We
to
did
keep
not,
TDOT from mowing? I had to ask.
we did not include that in this variance application. But the TDOT, we are leaving the TDOT fence. That's one of our agreements with them. They have a fence along 440 that delineates kind of what they are going to be maintaining for 440. So we're not touching anything inside the 440 fence with either side of the project. That was part of our agreements with excess land at TDOT.
Yeah, I mean,
Rebecca, would you mind just showing on here where those drainage swales are?
the pink.
Oh, it's all the pink. Okay.
Yeah,
This volume is pretty minor relative to that drainage basin, but I know over the last 10 years uphill along Battlefield, Mr. Palco spent countless hours trying to fight that drainage system. You know, just be aware of all the problems that they've incurred, because it's a blue line going there, and so they were never able to improve that system. I don't know if that's been resolved or not or ongoing, but there are with all the new rooftops in this neighborhood, drainage is a big problem. And so just be very cognizant of that, because you start moving dirt, people are probably going to come out and point fingers, and just be aware that, you know, just make sure no rise that was on Browns Creek, I'm sure, but just make sure there's no other adverse impacts.
And to that point, is there nowhere to compensate in that?
They can't cut
Yeah.
on the slope to build a flatter, so they have to fill a wall.
Yeah, but is there anywhere else to cut into that slope with another retaining wall to provide additional storage?
You're talking about for the uncompensated fill?
Yes.
So that's over to get the pedestrian ramps up. So to build, if you go to that sheet here, basically the two ends, so the little.
Can you zoom in, Rebecca, on the plan for me? So, is there a way to tighten up the wing walls of your abutments? Well, you already are parallel to the path.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty tight. So you can see the bridges in the middle, and then we've got a concrete, basically landings on either side, and then there's an asphalt trail heading down towards Battlefield Park.
And I guess the other way would be to make the bridge longer.
You make the bridge longer, which would be an extra cost, and then you have to deal with more footings and everything. So
yeah, you'd pull the bridge plan south, essentially, right?
Yeah, you'd have to go south with it, and then you could go around it, which would make it much longer. And then you're looking at a different type of structure, more than likely.
112 yards is about 12 dump trucks full. So that's a lot of length.
Mm-hmm.
And with this section of Browns Creek, there's a culvert upstream, and then it goes under the interstate downstream. So it's kind of got constraints on either section of this size, which helped with our no-rise study. So we were able to set the bridge height and everything to make sure that it wasn't going up.
Has the no-rise been approved? You say it was submitted and reviewed, but not.
Yeah, submitted and reviewed and approved by Jamie James, who's the Metro review.
So it has been approved. Okay.
And then for this section that we're looking at being as tight as it is in the drive that's existing there, can you talk about what's being removed in this zone? What's there today that's being removed, and then what's going back on, between the drive and between?
Yes, so it's basically a blind curve in Battlefield that we're coming up and going around the edge with. So we didn't really want to pull it much closer to the road because of you've got guardrail and other things there. We are going to have to demo out a couple trees and everything just to get the abutments in. We've been on site with the bridge manufacturer multiple times to see the least amount of damage we can do to the area, and then we're coming in with a planting plan to go back and mitigate any issues as far as plantings and trees that we are having. And we have submitted that, and we've been working hand in hand with parks to make sure that it's exactly what we want. And then from a riparian planting, preparing plantings, and then from aesthetics for the greenway as well. So are going to have to get rid of a few trees and a few shrubs to be able to actually construct it, but we are planning to come back with a ground cover riparian planting mix with trees, shrubs, and lower lying like grasses. And that's included in the plans as well.
Can we see the second area that's in question?
Are you asking about the retaining walls or the, there are multiple locations.
Is there a worse condition?
It's basically, so you can see it's everything that's in red. Those are all the retaining walls that are in the stream buffers. It's about 1,600 linear feet of retaining wall that are in the buffers.
What's the average height of the wall? Just curious. Where does it range from?
It varies between 2 to 3 feet. I think it gets up to around, I want to say around 8 feet or so. It's a pretty steep slope coming off the interstate, tying down. There are sections of the trail where the retaining wall is only on one side, and then there are a couple of sections of the trail where we had to actually do retaining walls on both sides of the trail, where we had a cut wall and then a fill wall. And that's to maintain ADA compliance with a longitudinal slope to make sure that we're not, having the slopes go up and down and making an issue for both ADA and for drainage. That's a good scenario where we've got a wall on both sides to be able to make that tie-in. And then I wanted to point out as well, we do have, for the 2 road crossings, we do have raised crosswalks for additional pedestrian safety. So not part of the stormwater, but I'm a big pedestrian safety guy, so I like to point it out. And I apologize for not having a clear overall map. It's a long linear piece together plan set.
Rebecca, is it possible to pull up the GIS of where that bridge crossing is and just kind of zoom in on that portion?
Yeah, and is all that street, is that all concrete lined, or is this, I know you mentioned concrete lined, but.
A portion of it is, and a portion of it's just a grass swell.
Yeah.
And that's fairly typical for older detention systems that over time they become more hydrologic.
Is this the area of tie-in where the bridge is going to go?
Correct. If you look at the roadway, it would be running along parallel to the roadway. It'd be on the top of the screen, and then, yeah, exactly where your mouse is going. And then we're tying into the entrance to the park.
Yeah, I think, from my landscape architecture perspective, you talked about the replacement of taking a couple trees out. It feels like it's probably going to be more than that, but just making sure that, getting those replaced just to have the long-term benefits, being within the buffers, being within the floodplain, it will just be a value, to whatever is getting impacted. Always great to, extend our greenway system and just find ways we can continue to improve the areas that they're going through, since they are often these buffers and stream corridors?
Correct. And we have a tree survey for all the trees over, I think, 6 DBH. And then we have listed out which ones are going to be demoed, which ones are going to be able to be retained. We've been working with Metro Parks to make sure that that is as minimal as possible, what's actually going to be taken out. And then, like I said, we've been on site with the Permatrack, the bridge manufacturer, on exactly what type of construction methods we can use to best mitigate that.
Okay, great.
So I think we've done as much as we can to be able to mitigate the amount of trees that we're having to take out.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Ms. Harrison.
Hi, yes. Cindy Harrison with Metro Parks and the Greenways and Open Space Division Director. Just want to, from a parks perspective, maybe add a little bit to the overall story here. This greenway is obviously part of the 440 Greenway, which will be a 7-mile greenway, which is also part of the city's Central Greenway, which is a loop around the urban core, a greenway loop. So providing pedestrian and bicycle off-street, safe travel around our city. This project, this section that we're talking about today, we've spent hours and hours because we are concerned about trees and maintaining trees in this area. Some of them, there's a lot of vegetation in general, but most of it along Battlefield. A good portion of it is behind the T-dot fence or right along the fence. There are a few trees that will have to be removed. There are quite a few trees that are in poor condition. So we are making a very concerted effort to save the trees that we can, but also to come in and supplement those. So just want you to know that we've given a lot of thought to that. Pedestrian safety as well, but I know that's not on what we're talking about today. The retaining walls, the stretch of this goes a lot at the foot of the interstate embankment. So we're benching into that embankment in a safe way to give that ADA access that we've talked about. And so we're not talking about being in a tunnel type situation. And much of those walls are fairly low. We intentionally looked at that as well to limit as much as we could any kind of handrails so that you have as much of a natural feel as you can as you walk through the area. So I'm happy to, from the park greenway sort of standpoint, talk a little bit more about that if you like, but just wanted to hit on the significance of this trail. It's a little bit less than a mile, but a really important segment of a system that will be going around the entire urban core.
I'm in complete support of the project. It seems like it's the most expensive cost per foot of a greenway, I would say. I mean, was there not an opportunity to just widen Battlefield and have a walking lane adjacent to Battlefield?
Well, I guess there's always some possibility depending on money, but our intent is to provide that off-street experience to provide non-stress transportation for pedestrians and cyclists. So we build bridges. Many of our greenways follow waterways. I mean, that's the original intent. So we do have bridges all throughout our system and boardwalks. And sure, they cost. We weigh that with the experience and the safe routing that we're giving to the public.
Can I also go to the Battlefield comment? Mm-hmm. So the drainage swell, we are actually between the drainage swell and 440 Interstate. The swell is closer to Battlefield than it is to 440. So our project's running between the swell and 440, not between Battlefield and the swell. So we'd have some more issues.
A lot of this is west of Granny White. And so it's all upstream. It's not immediately adjacent to the project, but, obviously all interconnected. And so I just making sure that any uncompensated fill down wouldn't I mean, it's such a big area, it's not going to, but just putting it out there that there's been a lot of very concerned and vocal people who have been flooded time and time again. But yeah, no, it's.
Mr. Hunt, please.
Yes. I wanted to add one note that perhaps isn't directly germane to this case, but historically, when Metro, the stakeholder group that adopted the regulations that created riparian no disturb stream buffers in Metro, there were several things that were contemplated as benefits of potential buffer areas, and greenways was one of those, to help facilitate the placement of greenways within Metro to the degree they could be facilitated by buffers. We have historically worked very closely with parks on the placement of buffers, and obviously it's dependent on where they're going. But I just wanted to offer that historical concept that buffers did include a vision of some greenways over time.
Thank you, Michael.
Does anybody have any other questions? Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Motion. Give me a second. I'll add, going back to your comment about the signage. I think mowing and maintaining this area, the slope is going to be important. It's going to be a challenging area to maintain considering the grades. And so having the signage there maybe make it a little more challenging.
As a greenway, you're allowed to maintain the immediately adjacent area by right. I believe the city is, and I don't think anybody's going to do any additional work than they have to. They're getting paid the same on their contract, but.
Well, in this case, it's our Metro employees who will be maintaining.
I mean, I'm okay if they waive the signage.
So they may do more work?
I'm sorry?
No. It was a bad joke.
I think it's important for our clarification if it's going to be motor maintained and if they're going to have signage.
Any opposition to maintaining and mowing and eliminating signage from a safety standpoint?
I don't know if they're subject to the signage regulation along stream buffer.
I think they are. Yeah.
Are they?
We have signage along some of our greenways and the buffers. It's a balance, right? We want to respect that buffer, and we don't want those things to be mowed that shouldn't be mowed. We also want it to feel natural and beautiful, but we're not objecting to signage.
I was just throwing it out there to see if it mattered, but it's a challenging little area to maintain, but okay.
I mean, we've also worked out educational signage in relation to greenways before.
I think some educational signage would be good, especially given that, community members may be using this to access the school, helping make the community aware of the buffers and, the importance of them along the route could be useful as opposed to the every 100. But so.
Okay, so maybe one educational sign in lieu of every 100 feet along Battlefield, essentially, and on that slope.
Well,
next to the park. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one on each end or something.
Right. We have an opportunity at the trailheads at either end. There's an existing trailhead at Browns Creek Battlefield Park, and at Sevier Park, where we'll add a new trailhead as part of this project. There's opportunities there. That's where people tend to gather and take a moment to read something like that. So we're happy to do it.
I'll amend the motion to, if elected, approve deviation from the signage regulations to allow them to decide if they want educational signage or placement of signage as typically mandated.
Okay.
Provide them the flexibility to do what they want with it.
So we'll take a vote on the amendment because we had it seconded, right? So is there a motion to approve the amendment?
Second.
And seconded, okay. All right. All in favor on the amendment? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? None? All right, amended, and then we'll take a vote on the amended motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Motion carries. Great, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Just because I know we've had some folks here from the public, we do want everyone to know that information about this project is up on our website, the Metro Parks website. And we haven't absolutely formalized the date, but about mid-August, we have one more public meeting, input meeting. So that will be advertised, and we would love to see the folks who are here today to come out, as well as anyone else listening that has an interest.
Great. Cool project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation. Thanks for the community for showing up. Appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that, Logan, any other items on the agenda we need to discuss?
We'll just be back here again next month, and then after that, we should be back in Sunny West.
How's the caseload looking?
Not sure yet, honestly. We will have some for sure.
Okay. Anything else? All right, with that, meeting adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.